Welcome to Gus and Jerry Unleashed. I'm Gus,
Jerry.
and here we are again doing this. I want to express my thanks to everyone that gave us big ups on the last one, our first one. This is our second one, and the feedback has been very, very good. Little litter. We'll throw that over here. But I did have to make a couple of changes. As we said last time, we break this up into three basic segments. We have our shallow end, our more lighthearted, superficial questions, and then the center of the plate, where we talk about things, issues of the day, national, worldwide, local, whatever. And then, of course, the deep end, where we go into something that's a little more substantial. For today, it was brought up that there were a couple of errors made on the first podcast. I noticed them. I brought them up to myself. You had a couple, so I thought the one question we have here from the shallow end is, and this was actually a friend of mine, Fran, who brought this up to me. So it wasn't like officially emailed or anything like that. It was just well, what do you do if you make a mistake? Because we don't really edit this. We just let it rip. What we do, we make a mistake on the last podcast. And it sounds like we should create a new segment called...
I think we should.
Yeah, like, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking?
What were we thinking?
I haven't made any mistakes, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, well then fine. Then that was the shortest segment in the history of podcasting. I know one mistake that I made was sitting directly on a side-on view, because in that big blue shirt I look like a manatee. So this will be, I look like the after picture of the cheeseburger diet. I was, so it's like, oh my gosh. So, okay, all right. So I'm a little sensitive about that. All right, fine. So I'm going to sit with a little more angular, and I took a tip from me. I wore black.
There you go.
But this will serve, as we do subsequent podcasts, you'll see how I get into just a spectacular fighting shape.
SeaWorld called, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Me. You're killing me. Okay, so right. There was what you had.
I had a mistake.
You did?
So my mistake was, I said last time we did this 2 weeks ago, that you can get an amazing blueberry gelato at Arizonia. Arizonia is actually tied to NASA, and it's actually called the Aerozone. And the two are so close, and I'm so fond of each of them, that's why this mistake was made. So my apologies. It's Amazonian in Lakewood.
All right.
Amazonian. And that's where you want to get your blueberry gelato.
And that, duly noted.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I also left out in my my travels here for a good cup of Joe, Metropolitan Coffee on Broadview Road.
Great place.
In Cleveland. Wow. They do a great job. So shout out to Metropolitan Coffee. And they didn't even give us a gift card. So I'm just going to buy Fran a cup of coffee at Metropolitan for that question. So, and I'm sure that we'll come up with more. So shoot us an email at gusandjerry@gmail.com. You can find us on X. You can find us on Facebook. And I think you can find us on Instagram too. Gus and Jerry across the board.
There you go.
So yeah, I kept it easy. I'm surprised there weren't more Gus and Jerrys out there.
Thank
God my name's not Tom. That's all I got to say.
That'd be a little mousy. Anyhow.
I know. Right? So let's go ahead and let's dive right into the center of the plate. And we have a delicious center of the plate today. Because this was something that you had brought up to me over the course of the last week, and I love the idea because we do this out of Cleveland, and we're Clevelanders, and one of the greatest things about where we live, and I agree with you on this. I think it's good to take note of this. Our cultural diversity in Cleveland is amazing. And it reflects in a lot of the culinary choices that we have. And traditionally, we've had the folks coming in from Ireland and Italy 120 years ago, including members of my family who started Gallucci's, the imported food store that I get asked about all the time. And I tell the old story about how the old store was where third base is now at the ballpark, and if you pull up third base, there's a stick of salami and a bottle of Chianti down in the hole. Yeah, I get that a lot. So that was my grandfather's brother who started that. But the point is, there are outside of those now. There are a lot more cultures. There is El Salvadorian, Puerto Rican. And as you pointed out,
Filipino.
absolutely.
Filipino community.
Yeah.
Coming up with some great places here in Cleveland. And if you haven't ventured out to any of them, you should. Simply just Google Filipino restaurants to eat in Cleveland. You'll come up with a few. Tito Flora in Independence is an amazing place. I'm not quite sure I'm going to say the second one properly, but I'm going to say Pararla. And you can call in and correct me with that. But two amazing places, and the Filipino culture is growing nicely in Cleveland. And the Filipinos who are here that I met, they have a lot of great things to say about Cleveland. So that's been remarkable as well. They're happy to be here. They're enjoying it, and I think they're thriving, which is nice.
It is very nice. And in fact, my son's doctor when he was a kid is from the Philippines as well. He and his wife, and also there are people that I met along the way that have come from the Philippines that have come here and found a home. The same can be said for a lot of folks from India, where my past. There's been a lot of hospitality, of course. I grew up in the hotel business, and where a lot of Indians are gravitating now are to hospitality. And anyone who's worked in hospitality, if you're watching or listening, this can attest that unlike a lot of businesses, the higher you go up on the responsibility ladder, the more and more and more hours you have to put in. And for a family to run a restaurant, or a family or an extended family to run a hotel, you're talking.
You're living there.
You're living there 365, 7 days a week. And even though I grew up in hotels, when I was looking at what direction I wanted to go in, I gravitated towards restaurants because I had experience in both. And I thought, well, at least with the restaurant, you can lock the door every night.
For a little bit.
For a little bit, yeah. I used to have a vacation once a week. Yeah, it was from 3:00 Sunday until 9:00 Monday morning.
That's a great vacation.
That was my vacation. That was my time off. It's a lot of work. So for these new families that have been coming in, and this hasn't just started; it's been going on a while with Filipinos, with El Salvadorians, Indians, and a lot of other that I'm leaving out, not purposely, but only for reasons of time. They come in as family group, and they reach out as my grandfather's brother did to my grandfather and said, "Hey, it's not only America, it's Cleveland. It's a culture that has a lot of different neighborhoods, a lot of different people in it, and we're making money. You got to come here. You got to come check this out." And in fact, my grandfather did do that, and he came here, and actually he spent 6 months with his brother, and then he wasn't feeling it. He went back to Italy, and this happened 3 times. Third time he came, he met my grandma. And that's all it took, one good woman, right? To get him to stick around.
And you guys did a hell of a job in the hotel and restaurant business.
Oh, you know what? It was I was at a and you want to talk about cultures in this city in Northeast Ohio and Cleveland. We are an incredible culture of giving here. Last night, I had a chance to go back to an event that I helped start. I want to say 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and it's called the Greater Cleveland Chili Cook-Off for Autism. And going back there, I ran into a fella who had been working at the hotel that we had it at, the Holiday Inn on Rockside Road, for 25 years. And even though my dad's been gone for over 30, he was still telling me stories about back in the day, the people that developed the property, and what an amazing guy he was, and he's heard the stories, and I'm just like, man, you know what? We're all on this planet for for a very finite period of time, and those that we call closest to us, that we my dad was to me, he's my hero. Lost him at 58, and he was only
That's young.
58. I was in my late 20s, but to this day, when I hear anyone bring up his name, it touches me deeply.
It should. It should.
Because he was a special guy,
Yeah.
and part of that culture, that culture of giving continues. The chili cook-off does wonderful. Challenger Baseball, the folks there that I've had the pleasure to get involved with, they do terrific too, and they play their games in the summer at the fields of Broadview Heights, where Broadview Heights City Hall used to be, off of Broadview Road, just north of Royalwood, there off of Broadview Road in the back there. And I MC those games, and AJ was a player, and now he's an assistant coach, not only our visual director. And it's great to see kids with all kinds of challenges, whether they be blind, in a wheelchair, have autism, Down syndrome. They get to come out, shoot up, and they get to play the great American game. And I'll tell you, that is really satisfying to see. You know what? And I know you have a connection.
I do. You know, when I
Challenger.
say something about Cleveland, when you have a cause like that and you have a community like Cleveland, you just need to put those two words together, cause and community, and they'll come out and they'll support it. I used to do walks for autism with my daughters now and then. My grandson, who's now 4, had some issues when he was born, and the support is amazing in the community. But my connection is my oldest brother, who's now deceased. He's been deceased about, this will be 2 years this summer. He was extremely severely autistic, so he could physically do anything, but he couldn't communicate. I didn't know any different when we grew up together. He was my best friend. We played ball. We horsed around. He just couldn't communicate, but it never bothered or troubled me at all. So my parents had him into those different types of events that were designed for autistic folks and handicapped folks and so on and so forth. So yeah, I spent a lot of my childhood years watching him develop, and I mean, phenomenal baseball player.
Really?
Just couldn't communicate, so he couldn't communicate, and that's just the way that was. But you talk about a learning, right? I believe in my heart, even though he was in his world, I think his world was far better off than my world has ever been. I think he is just, he's trapped in that body for whatever reason God made him that way. I don't know. But the knowledge I took away from him and the learnings I took away from him, and I'm always wondering, what's he thinking? Where's he going with all this? And couldn't tell me.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating for him. So the frustration turned into seizures and panic fits, if you will, panic attacks. So very, very difficult on my parents, because back then mental disorders of any type were not understood. Right. And we didn't have the facilities or the manpower of the people who understood it to help. Right. So they ended up being institutionalized, right. Which my parents were very fortunate. They didn't necessarily institutionalize him, but they had to put him into a facility that could help him. And that was heartbreaking for me. It tore my world apart. When he left, I was devastated, and just didn't have any idea where he was going or why or all that type of stuff. So,
how old were you when this happened?
So I was 8 and he was 13 when he went away, and it was very, very tough. I mean, I lost what was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So he was never to be forgotten. My mother's final words to me before she passed away was, "If you ever forget your brother, there'll be some consequences to that." I never did forget my brother. I'll honestly say
you
I never
visited him frequently.
I would say I would try to get to my brother, because the way I travel for my business, I try to get to him at least once a quarter to visit him, make sure he was okay, and so on and so forth. He ended up in a facility in West Virginia, where I'm from, the West Virginia-Pennsylvania border, mm-hmm. which made it a little easier to go see him, because I'd go back home at the same time. But my whole entire family never forgot about him. Mm-hmm. They just never did. And tragically, my sister passed away in between all this, and when my mother left, my brother realized that my sister was his second mom. Mm-hmm. And then my sister passed away, and it became very, very hard. So, I'm going to bring a tear to my eye here in about a minute. But I will just say this, all these different things that we're made of. You and I call ourselves normal. I'm not so sure that's a good way to call us, a good word to use. I think those folks are normal. I think we're the ones struggling. I really do. So.
I think there's a lot of evidence that points to that, and I think that you make a pretty good point. And God bless the spirit and the memory of your brother and your sister.
Thank you.
You know, and we, you know, and when I was working with the ASGC, of course, we had our own challenges with AJ, who's watching us do this right
AJ.
now. We couldn't be more proud. But he overcame a lot. He had to work through a lot. There was a lot of therapy. There were, changes. There were differences. We had to make changes in our world. And, when love is there, you do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now we look back and we thank God. We thank God for all the great therapists. We thank God that we had a son who was willing, who did it without complaint. And I believe there's two paths that have to work concurrently when it comes to people on the spectrum, and obviously the autism spectrum. And that is, there is one where you need early diagnosis. People have to come to grips with the reality that there's something going on, and to be able to do what's responsible. See a pediatric neurologist, find out what's going on. That would be my heartfelt recommendation to anyone who's questioning it, be they a parent or a grandparent. Do that. The other thing is, and work and try to, we do what we can as parents and caregivers to try to, kind of bring our child up to speed. But at the same time, the world has, especially I've seen this over the last 25 years, has come increasingly closer to understanding, accepting, and destigmatizing people that are on the spectrum. And that understanding and that effort, and God bless the people who do all the research and try to find, different medications or causes or cures. And there has been all the talk about the Mirasol and all of that, and additives and these preservatives for vaccines, and we can point the finger anywhere we want. I think that the best thing to do is, you want a healthy, happy world. Just, remember there's two paths. We do the best we can with who we have in our family, and our results have been spectacular. And he's put into work, and so that's, we're very grateful to God.
Amen.
Amen. And on the other hand, the world has become more understanding too. Now people are hiring people with disabilities. When I had a restaurant, I had a dishwasher that was deaf. And so I learned a little bit of sign language, not a lot, because thank God he was good at reading lips. But and he kind of understood. When you're a dishwasher, when things are going haywire. You can see it. Dishes are flying everywhere. But there are, but mostly when it comes to mental conditions, and whether they be conditions, disorders, any way you want to frame it, the willingness for us as a society and us as a culture to reach out more towards those people and understand their value, that they're assets.
That's right.
And to leverage, all of that is great. And so AJ now works with Inspiring Minds out of Broadview Heights. Can I say that? We don't have to edit that out? No, you're okay with that? All right, cool. And he's helping the teachers there, and he does editing. He helps us out. He helps his church out, and so it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see. So we have a culture here in Cleveland. It's a giving culture. It's a compassionate culture. It's a culinarily diverse culture. But it's also a culture that's been, for the most part, I think, appreciative and respectful to history of the people that have been there to protect us, to keep us safe. We're talking about police, fire, first responders. Isn't there a museum?
There is. There's a museum. Probably a few people don't even know about it. It's a really interesting museum. My son-in-law was a firefighter, and I'm appreciative of his efforts every day, along with all our first responders that you just mentioned. But there's the Firefighters Museum down on Carnegie. It's right on the corner, right across from what's it called these days, Progressive Field. I'm not can't keep up with the names.
Yeah, that's okay. I still call it the Jake.
So do I. So it's right across the street from there. And if you ever have a chance to stop in or take a little one there who can understand what a firefighter does, it's just amazing. And we're blessed to have it. Not every city has a firefighters museum, and we do.
That is very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I love the idea now, and a lot of this really started to. And again, it'll peak, it'll valley, but after 9/11, there was a whole newfound respect for firefighters, first responders, police, EMS, and it was I call it, and I can't claim this. I know someone else who's done similar what we're doing here on a much higher scale. It was a 9/12 culture. It was in the aftermath when we all kind of came together, and we started to really acknowledge and appreciate in a more conscious sense all the work and all the sacrifices that are made by the people that not only help keep us safe, keep us protected, but also take care of us when unfortunate things happen. So it's another segment of our culture. I'm proud to be from Cleveland.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be. I was born in Parma, right down to my little white booties, which I'm not wearing today.
Some great pierogies in Parma.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, till this day.
Yeah.
Parma Tavern has some great pierogies, some great kielbasi. Yeah, if you ever want to drop in there. Speaking of places to go.
Places to go. We got a lot of them.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good places for really any kind of cultural Mexican food, whether it be Italian. Now there are more Vietnamese places that are popping up.
Thai.
You can get your Thai. You can get your pho. You can get your pho on.
That's right. Get your pho on.
And so to have all those choices, and a lot of people in the Cleveland area, I don't think really realize it. Travel, go around, check it out.
Absolutely.
To some of these cities that are some of the more popular cities that are that people are flocking to or moving to. Great cities, but I'll tell you what, I would go toe to toe with any of them when it comes down to culture, not only culinarily, but as far as how we how we treat one another, our generosity as an area. The Cleveland Food Bank is the most prosperous food bank per population, I think, in the entire country. I've heard that before. I don't doubt it. We're a generous group here. So big ups to the city of Cleveland and the surrounding communities.
Love it.
We love it, and we love it here.
Yeah, absolutely. And venture down some of the streets that you would normally not venture down. Like get down into the Tremont, Ohio City area. Get down towards the what's our market called down there that we have?
The West Side Market.
West Side Market. Get over. I mean, just inside the West Side Market.
Yeah.
Some amazing places to eat and so on.
Yep.
That's where you find the gems. That's where you find the gems.
Yep. And the area where my dad grew up, which is around St. Rocco's Church area. It's a very robust Puerto Rican neighborhood. In the Parma area, of course, you have a little Ukraine. You also have an El Salvadorian. They have their pupuserias, where you can enjoy some of their fare, and it's great to have that variety, and it's great to be reminded of the rich variety that we have in this town. There we are. That is it, man. That's that. I mean, the center of the plate was robust.
That's right. The culture moment.
The culture moment. Cleveland culture.
Cleveland
We love
culture.
it here. Yes,
Love
yes. And notice we didn't say one thing about rivers. Okay. Oh, but you know what? I will, because everybody knows, Cleveland, the rivers. The river caught on fire back in 69 or something. 50 years after that, or was it right around there? Just a handful of years ago, Kayaking Magazine named the Cuyahoga River the Reader's Choice favorite river to kayak
Get
in the
out of
country.
town.
Yes, there can be a turnaround, but there's no really good jokes for a river that doesn't catch fire. A river. So there's this river near Cleveland, and you can have an awesome time kayaking down it.
Does anybody know what Cuyahoga means?
Crooked River.
Crooked River.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. What tribe? I don't know. Is it
The Fagaris.
what?
The Fagaris.
Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. You made that.
I mean,
no, you could have. I could pass that
I
on. So we got
forgot.
an email that said, there's no Fugaris.
The Fagaris. Yeah, the Fagari tribe. We're like, where the heck are we? Anyhow, so
That'll be part of the next segment.
so the Cuyahoga River, even though it did catch on fire like it did, that's the first implementation. I could talk today of EPA.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that, yeah.
I mean, kind of thankful that it did what it did, because now we have those controls all over the place.
Make sure that that we're breathing cleaner air,
Yep.
and we're taking care of the world around us. I think, didn't we just have Earth Day?
But every day's Earth Day for me.
Every day's Earth Day. Okay.
When I'm standing on it, it's good.
Hey, I mean, save the earth, don't burn the toast.
Yes.
I don't know. Hey, I drive a hybrid. I don't know.
Oh, amen.
We do the best we can. But you know what? I don't want to get off on this, because we're going off script, people.
We have a script?
You had one?
Okay.
I think we did.
Okay.
We have general guidelines. Anyways, we could do the whole energy thing in another one. That'd be fun. For any of you, Landman fans out there. Let's dive in.
The deep end.
The third period. Yeah. We're going deep. We're going deep, folks. And I love this, and I love building up to this, because this is where I really this is where I get the most out of Jerry, folks. I'm just gonna say it, man. I love we are setting you up. We are teeing you up, dude. It's gonna be great. So
I got to be somewhere. Go ahead.
he's gonna try to ditch, but he can't. I recently heard a great quote about success, and it's from a guy by the name of Earl Nightingale. And Earl Nightingale was before there was Tony Robbins, before Zig Ziglar, before all of these guys, there was Earl Nightingale. And Earl Nightingale, this was shared with me recently, and I love this quote: "Success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea." Success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea. And there's a lot of meat to that, because every word carries a lot of weight. It's progressive. It's not an arrival. It's movement. It's constantly moving forward. Obviously, we want to be successful with what we're doing here, or really anything we're doing in life, right? The realization, making real of what exists. That was existing first as just an idea. A worthy idea. Worthy is that moral filter that really changes everything. Why any idea? It's got to be a worthy idea. Of course, idea meaning that it starts in the mind, not in the market. And the success, it begins as a thought. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea. So if we follow that logic and we flip the coin, that failure could be defined as the abandonment of a worthy idea. Now, our deep end discussion today, and this was brought to me by a conglomerate of people, but I'm going to give credit to Bob S. on this one. Bob S. is going to Metropolitan Coffee too. The question is this. Just get right down to it, Gus.
Yeah, come on, Gus.
How do success and failure affect spiritual fitness? How do success and failure affect spiritual fitness? And spiritual fitness, meaning, of course, that belief in some kind of higher power, be it, what we believe, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Others have, we have, of course, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. We have a lot of different religious cultures, and there is a common thread where they point themselves towards a power greater than themselves. And the better, in my opinion, the better a personal relationship one can garner with that higher power, the more spiritually fit
You can be.
they can be, or they can become. And so, success and failure, how can they work towards and how can they work against our spiritual fitness?
Well, every success takes that first step, right? And generally with that first step comes a lot of prayer because you don't really know what you're doing or what you're jumping into. I think you and I have been down the road of trying a couple things, and some have turned out. Maybe most haven't. I'm not real sure, but spiritual fitness wears on your mental fitness, wears on your health fitness, so on and so forth. But you've got to be able to discern: is this best for me? And in my ventures and what I did, I wanted it to be best for me because I didn't want to continue to do what I was doing. I was a corporate guy, a lot of travel, away from home, and I wanted to have particularly one successful business. And I'll mention the name, known as California Salads. Maybe some of the listeners have been there. It used to be down in Valley View by Lock Keepers. And everything pointed in the right direction that it was going to be successful because there was a previous California Salads in Beechwood that was very successful. So we were kind of playing off of their background, their reputation, all the things they did, we were going to do and do it right. You never can see the future of what your business is going to look like, but this particular business had everything wrong from the moment we opened a door. So for 7 years, all we did was swim upstream.
Wow, that's a long time.
We made money, but we kept putting it back into the business. So how would you like to open a brand new business down in Valley View and the very next week have them close Rockside Road because they're going to tear it up and do all the reconstruction?
Seems like they're always doing that.
They always did. They did it right, and that took a year. So we were set back for a year. We just a little trickle business coming down to Valley View because nobody wanted to come down.
Right.
And I could go on with a whole lot of stories as to what happened to California Salads, but we were constantly in the rears. So it took a real spiritual toll on myself and my family. I give my wife a lot of kudos because she hung in there. And, I wanted it to work because I didn't want to travel anymore. Unfortunately, between weather and various other things, flooding, as you can imagine what Valley View does, it floods a lot. We just couldn't overcome it. So in the 7th year, we decided to close the doors. And it was really, really hard because California Salads had a beautiful reputation for marvelous salads, shareable salads. So our salads were huge. And we didn't care if you bought one and shared it. We didn't care. Wraps, amazing wraps, good and thick. We were doing this before it was ever popular. Pharmaceutical reps would come in and buy hundreds of wraps and salads for their doctors, to sell them something and bring in lunch and so on and so forth.
And it's something healthy.
Yeah, something healthy. We were all healthy. We didn't have a bar. We didn't have a liquor license. We were open 10 to 6, no weekends other than catering. And that's what we wanted to do. And it was supposed to be successful enough where I was going to do a couple more. I saw the vision. I saw everything ahead of what I was doing and where I wanted to take it and how I wanted to do it and maybe bring my family into it and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it didn't work. So it forced me into business bankruptcy, which is my name's on everything, so it might as well be personal bankruptcy, right? And we went through 20 years of hell trying to pay the debt off. And therefore, by the grace of God, we did pay the debt off, and we owe nothing to the business today. I think we paid every vendor that we owed. I used to tell my wife, pay the tax man. I don't care if you pay anybody else, but pay the tax man.
Mm-hmm.
We owed no taxes, nothing. We were clear there, but we had some debt we had to pay because we had no business coming in anymore. So in my little peanut brain, that was really hurtful. But I wanted to do something else. I wanted to open up another business and another business because I just didn't want to be on the road. I put together an organization called I Thought. I Thought is simply works like this. Hey, I thought if we did this, we could do this. And I Thought has a list of businesses in it, ideas and whatnot that could become something. However, when you don't have any cash, they become a thought.
Yes,
and that's about the extent of it.
It remains a thought.
It remains a thought, right?
Nice thought, but
Right. So good things come out of all this stuff. Today, if I had all these restaurants, I don't know that I could outfit them with employees because it's so hard to find. I was able to speak at St. Basil to young people who were trying to get in business. Father Walt asked me if I would be that guy. Anybody who was trying to open a business, would I come in and talk to them because of what happened to us? And it's always the unknown. You opened restaurants before, you know. It's always the unknown. It's what you don't know that kills you. But you cannot do anything about weather, flooding, tornadoes, hurricanes, tearing up Rockside Road.
Fire.
Yeah, fire. None of that's in the plan. But unfortunately it happened. Right. So yeah. So I just say pray first. Ask the Lord, is this right for me? And if you think it is, go talk to somebody. And don't talk to a lawyer or anybody else who's trying to just sell, bill you hourly. Talk to somebody who's been there. Talk to a Gus. Talk to a Jerry. Because let us tell you what it's all about before you take that step.
How would you think that experience affected you spiritually, not only in the negative as you brought about, but perhaps in the positive?
So it negatively affected me bad. I was losing my faith bad. I was walking away from things, and I said, this, I just don't get it. What have I done wrong? Poor me kind of thing. So it really did affect me that way. However, usually when you get hurt, whether it's spiritually or physically, you have to figure out how to pick yourself up and move on, right? So I surrounded myself with some pretty good mentors in my walk with Christ. And those mentors, they looked at things differently than I could ever look at them. They had perspectives that I didn't think about. They put things in, this is what it's all about, Jerry. You're missing the bigger picture. Christ wants you here. He wants you here for a reason. Yeah, you tried it. It didn't work. The apostles were a bunch of failures, basically not failures, but they were people who had struggles and so on and so forth, right? So out of that came a different look for me at my faith. And I took it in a different direction. And I just became more connected to Christ. And I went directly to him. I mean, I had some, unfortunately, the people who mentored me are now gone. They've passed away, and sad, but they were wonderful people. I actually used to call the one, his name was Ray Fazio. And Ray Fazio, to me, was a saint on earth. I don't care if I had troubles in the middle of the night, could be 2 a.m. I'd call him, and he was there. Just amazing. Huh. And most of the people who mentored me were like that. I don't know that I've been that way to anybody, but I surely know that they believed in a higher, greater power called Jesus Christ, and they lived by it, and they taught me how to live by it. I don't do it perfectly like they did. I think they were perfect, but I try. So it's brought me to good places.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Because the aggregate of what we experience creates who we are in the present moment.
That's right.
And that's an amazing story because, I mean, I think you're an amazing guy. You've done a lot. You've done a lot of good, but you've never always had that humility. But when it comes to setting a mic in front of you and saying, how can you help others with their spiritual fitness by sharing something sincere about your life? I mean, you're just ready to go. And God bless you for that. Restaurants, yes. Restaurants can be very painful. They can be a lot of fun. But I have experienced that too. I have opened and sold too. The second one I sold, someone actually came in and asked me if I wanted to sell it, and I told them, well, no. But I knew that, with everything that was going on, the hours I was putting in, it was like, I think, maybe this ought to be a road I should at least explore. So I did so, and eventually did sell the restaurant, and it turned out that that was a good thing. I look at restaurants just for the hourly commitment you need to make. That's a younger guy's game.
Mm-hmm.
But when you speak in terms of how it affected my spiritual fitness, I think about the first experience I had with the restaurant. I had a place. It was called Poochie's in the Valley. It was in the Akron Valley. The impetus was my brother and I having a conversation. Our dad had recently passed. And, given his hospitality background, the thought was, we should do a restaurant that Dad would have loved. That was it. So I did pray on it. I was going in over my head. I had helped manage shifts, but I hadn't even been a general manager. I had been a bartender. I had washed dishes. I had been a server. I had been an auditor. I had done, all these pieces and parts. But my first GM job was going to be in a place that I co-owned with my brother. And he was in the back and I was in the front, and then I would look over all of it. And when it opened, I mean, it was like, this is why, these experiences, success and failure, I mean, they may be opposites on paper, but they're both teachers. I started, thinking, we opened a restaurant, things were going well. I mean, we were successful right off the rip. When that happens, and I was a lot younger at the time too, I was in my early 30s or mid 30s at the time. There's a tendency, especially in a young, inexperienced mind, to take some things for granted. And I started, looking at some things and saying, oh, I don't have to take such a close look at that. Someone else will take a look at that. And even though I wanted to be someone that was overseeing everything, I didn't want to be micromanaging everything. So I micromanaged the stuff that I liked the most, right? I micromanaged as far as how servers were serving tables and treating people, what was on the menu, what was, behind the bar, and and trying to price things out responsibly and accordingly, and doing all of that stuff. But I wasn't as careful an eye on trends. Where sales are moving, inventory, and everyone goes, anyone that doesn't take inventory in the business is going to go broke. I know. So and it wasn't like, but what happened with Poochie's is we didn't go broke, but we started to meet setbacks. We started to have to put money back into the business, and that was very scary for me. So, not being someone of real strong spiritual fitness at the time, and yeah, I've been raised a certain way, and I went to a Catholic school, and that none of that really means anything until a person is out there experiencing things on their own, and there's really no one else to turn to but yourself. When the buck stops with me, I mean, it's like I just got me and I got God. Now, you brought up mentorship, and I have to make a note of that because I had a wonderful mentor, and businesses, to get them off the ground, I mean, you need to have that backstop. You need to have that crutch when you're lame for a day or even a moment. And mine for that was a friend of my dad's. His name was Terry Naris, and he, like your friend Ray Fazio, is no longer with us, but was the kind of guy that I could call upon day or night. In fact, we opened Poochie's on August 14th, 2000, and Janet was pregnant with AJ at the time. And the idea was we were supposed to open in June. AJ was going to be born in September. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. So we opened on the 14th, which was a Monday. And the next day, I'm in there fixing things on the computer and adjusting stuff from the first day. And we were all riding real high off of that, because it's like, okay, we got the first day under our belt, and we made some money and we did a thing and we opened a restaurant. And I get a phone call from Janet. I'm going to the hospital right now. She went into labor early. It turned out, it was for the safety of our son. We didn't know he was a son at the time. Back then, that was just the beginning of the whole, gender reveal thing.
Right.
We were like, nah, you know what? That's a new thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait and see what God has in store and do it that way. So we had a little, we had a little bit going, but we had a little trust. We had the mustard seed of faith, but the spiritual fitness, because of the setbacks, wasn't there. But that was it. Then the next day, my son was born, and I was calling Terry on the way home after our first day. We hadn't even opened for our second day yet, and I'm telling him I'm on my way to the hospital. And he said some things that I guess we can use on a podcast, but I won't. And I'm just like, yeah. And he's just like, all right. He's like, I'll be there. And he dropped, and he had a very good position already. He was running not the Javits Center, that's New York, the convention center in Akron.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Akron
sorry,
Convention Center.
that'll be on our first segment next week. Couldn't remember it. Sorry about that. Sorry, Schwag. That was his nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he was there for me, and it was wonderful. And we start running this business, and things are going well. I'm wearing a jacket. I'm greeting people, and we're doing it. We're doing a place that would have made Dad proud. Took our eye off the ball. Started taking some things for granted. And had some setbacks, had some slow weeks. And I was like, I don't have multiple locations. I don't have the luxury of saying, what, store A isn't doing so good, but store B is going to make up for it this week.
Sure.
I didn't have that. So I felt very, very exposed, very vulnerable, and it was scary.
Very.
And, so what I did was I let my fear overrun my faith. And after, we still had some good weeks in there, but we started having some bad ones. The bottom line is, had I wrote it out, I think we would have been there a lot longer. Would we have had multiple locations? God only knows. Would I have sold it after, another, dozen years and made, a boatload of money? Who knows? All I know is we got nervous, we sold, when I look at all the costs we put into it, we sold it for less than we put into it.
Of course.
But I was afraid that downward trend was going to continue, and I let my fear override my faith. So faith and the belief in a higher power and a belief in God, up there with my dad that I trusted was, up there, and we didn't have a manual. That's no way to start a business. What, a restaurant your dad would have liked? That's no way to start a business. But it worked because we believed.
Well, you were going to honor your dad with what you were doing.
Yeah.
The thing about the businesses is, as you mentioned, the toll is incredible. But it's not only the toll on you, it's a toll that it took on my family and your family.
Right.
I mean, my family lost their faith, and my kids were scrambling, and now all of a sudden we don't have the income that we had, and so on and so forth. So it was very difficult on them as well.
It was rough too, because then people like, hey, everything was going great, and now they aren't. Some people that had a lot of faith in you before are starting to question your next move.
Yeah.
And I have a wonderful, beautiful wife who has had every reason to question moves that I've made. And, and in some cases she's been right, but she's stuck with me. And that was, and that's been the greatest blessing. And, through it all, successes and failures, and we've both had our share. I believe that, like iron sharpens iron, that those setbacks helped me to at least progress, as our friend Mr. Nightingale puts it, towards that worthier ideal. And now that worthy ideal, for me, that definition of success is to have a better, more personal relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
I don't want to be someone that says, you know what, this isn't cool, I'm going to park this aside. There are times and places where you have to read the room. If I'm presenting someone, like I'm working with these folks now in home improvements, and I'm helping them develop their business and sell more of their stuff, and I'll be going and I'll be visiting people in their homes. And I am not going to bring up God as the first thing, right? But it's going to be there for me. Mm-hmm. And that I want to say that that knowledge, that acknowledgement, starting off the day like we talked about last time, ending the day with that, it's essential. But whatever someone sees as is something greater than themselves. And I've seen this with friends of mine in recovery as well, that they look towards a higher power, and sometimes it's just a community or a fellowship of people who are like-minded, that are rooting for them in their success. And anyone out there listening or watching this, You know, you may be going through some challenges right now. You may be going through a really rough patch. Your faith may be questioned. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to question your faith. You know, we have a God that gives us, in my humble opinion, free will. And as long as that's the case, know that that's okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got at least two dudes here that are rooting for you,
That's right.
that will believe in you, because we have seen outside of the failures that we've experienced, which are relatively small than some of the horror stories we've heard that are out
Oh
there.
my goodness. Right.
You know, we can relate, and being able to relate in that regard and have it nourish our spiritual fitness on a daily basis.
We started off by
That's
saying,
essential.
when we make a mistake, what the hell are we thinking, right?
Right.
You can use that also with the Lord. Hey, what the hell was I thinking, Lord? You know, what was I thinking? And you can also question him. What were you thinking? I thought you'd help me make this successful, but it wasn't.
Right.
You can have a hardcore conversation with God. You don't have to always be humble and majestic and all that. You can get right into the nitty gritty of it, and you should.
I agree. That's a very good point, because I think God can take it.
Yeah, I think he can.
I think he can handle it.
He's been bounced around a few times. He's always bounced back. So
Wow.
I have no problem going to him and saying, you know what, Lord, I have to have a tough conversation here. I need to know what's going on. I messed up. Not only did I mess up my life, I messed up my family's life. Now look, now what do I got to do?
Right.
And, you know, and digging out of the hole is not easy. It's not easy.
You know, I'll tell you, they say the best thing about hitting yourself in the head repeatedly with a hammer.
The hammer wins.
Yeah. Well, the best thing is when you stop.
Yeah, right.
And I had to stop.
Yeah.
And it's made all the difference. I look at, you know, with increased spiritual fitness, how it doesn't fix everything right away, but it gives me a roadmap, and it gives me better relationships across the board, and it reminds me of everything that I am to be grateful for.
Yep.
And it's a lot,
Yep.
including what we're doing here right now.
You can never count your blessings all day. My father used to say, count your blessings along the way. You'll never finish by the end of the day. And you just won't. There's so many blessings. So the hardships we go through, yeah, we dwell on those and we think about them and all that stuff. But I just started focusing my life on the blessings. I don't really, that's all in the past. I
Amen.
can't change it, can't do anything about it.
Right.
You know, onward,
Right. Onward.
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 And
So, well, go ahead.
No, say, with that note, where are we?
Where are we? I mean, we covered everything. You know, we covered the boo-boos from last week, and we also covered some. I love that segment. I think we should revisit it at some point soon about you know, the rich culture, the rich cultures that make up this
great city.
wonderful area.
Yep.
Yeah, Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, and if you love to eat like we do. You are in a really good place. Look around, trust me.
Okay.
And then finally, of course, you know, looking at successes and failures and how each one could affect our spiritual fitness, both in a positive and negative way. But the great thing at the end of the day is we have a choice. We have a choice regardless of what external factors are affecting our life. We have a choice to internalize ourselves a strength that comes with a good personal relationship with our higher power. And all of you know out there who it is for us. Whoever it is for you, I encourage you to reach out to it, be grateful, and know that you know, we're praying for you all.
Amen.
Thanks for a great time again.
Fantastic.
Look, we did it again. We
Thanks
pulled
for
it
our
off.
great audience out there. And most
Yeah.
importantly, we got to thank AJ.
Yes, thank you, AJ. Great job. And thanks to our wives for letting us, you know, play podcasters
Absolutely.
again. And we will catch you next time. God bless.
God bless.
Adios.
Adios. See ya.